In today's programme, I'm visiting the secret seaside resort in the heart of the West End. Talking bikes and brill cream in a 50s transport cafe, and pondering the mysteries of this lofty survivor. But first, I'm house hunting in Northampton. How about this for a nice little pied-à-terre? Number 78 Derngate was built around 1815 by a plumber called William Mobbs. But its finest hour came a century later, when a new owner decided to give the place a rather special makeover. Behind this door lies a masterpiece that only materialised when the paths of two extraordinary men crossed. The first character in our story was a chap who owned this place back then. His name was Joseph Wenham Bassett Loke, and he was a toy maker. He was given the house as a wedding present, but decided it needed a bit of a facelift before he moved in. He was obviously a man with a keen eye for detail, as you can see from a visit to the kitchen, which still looks pretty much as he left it, minus the cornflakes, of course.
Wenham Bassett Loke was a man who thought he had every new idea going. His personal motto was fitness for purpose. So taking a basement kitchen like this, he would want to transform it from a very ordinary Victorian house which just had gas lighting in and a cold water tap in the kitchen. So the transformation was totally complete. You've got tiles that run from the ceiling to the floor. They're scalloped where the tiles touch the floor, so it was very easy to keep clean. He brought in electricity into the house, which really was very unusual again for 1916.
This was a state-of-the-art kitchen back then, and Bassett Loke wanted the rest of the house to be equally up to date. To realise his grand designs, he needed a grand designer, which is where our second character enters the story of Derngate. You may have heard of him. His name was Charles Rennie Mackintosh, a man who'd forged an international reputation for his pioneering Art Nouveau designs for buildings like the Glasgow School of Art. But by the time he met Bassett Loke, his reputation for unreliability and eccentricity meant that the work had started to dry up. And this would have been the last major work that he undertook?
It certainly was for Mackintosh, although he was doing some other designs. This was the only realised commission. And in fact, the reason why the house in Northampton is so important, it is the only house outside of Scotland that Mackintosh was actually to fulfil the commission on.
The centrepiece of the house was called the Hall Lounge. Wow, that's something, isn't it?
It's quite something altogether, isn't it? That's for sure.
And this fantastic gold motif, which is started by our old friend the screen here, which you can only actually see from this side.
Yes, it's very striking, isn't it? Again, if you think back to 1916, who on earth would have thought of having a black stair screen, black ceiling, black floor, black furniture, and then all very excitingly lit by this very gold use of the inverted triangles.
So how much of this is Rennie Mackintosh?
100% Mackintosh indeed. What you've got in here really is the 1916 wow factor.
These amazing rooms were restored by a trust which took over the building around 10 years ago. Although the house had been used as everything from offices to a school after Bassett Loke had moved out, much of the original Rennie Mackintosh interior was surprisingly well preserved. Amazingly, the great designer oversaw the whole makeover from a distance.
As far as we know, he didn't actually come to Northampton. The designs were passed on to Bassett Loke as he went down to London and exchanged letters and notes with Mackintosh. But nevertheless, I think without a doubt, this room was very much explicitly what Mackintosh had in mind.
But designed by remote?
Almost, almost.
This was one of the public rooms, but there are other treasures here that you'd only get to see if you were a guest of the house. And there were plenty of eminent visitors over the years, including George Bernard Shaw, who stayed here twice. Before I head to the top floor to show you the guest bedroom, I just have to nip to the bathroom. Perhaps you'd care to join me. The bathroom was Bassett Loke's pride and joy. Not only did he have the first indoor bathroom in Derngate, he also had one of those newfangled showers. Unheard of in 1916. They look like real mosaics, but in fact, this is waterproof wallpaper. The restoration team had a real job tracking down replacement rolls of this, but it was well worth the effort. And Bassett Loke was also proud of the silvered window pane he used for shaving. Once his guests had showered and shaved, they could head for the bedroom for a good night's kip, provided the wallpaper didn't keep them awake, that is.
The most famous guest in this house was George Bernard Shaw, who, after he spent a night in here, was apparently asked by Mrs. Bassett-Loke how he'd slept and whether he'd been disturbed by the wallpaper. And apparently he said, "No, madam, I always sleep with my eyes shut."
So we're sitting in what could be Rennie Mackintosh's last piece of work.
I think so. As I say, its room was finished 1920, 1921. Certainly a year after that, 18 months after that, Mackintosh had gone to live in the south of France and, as far as we're aware, didn't design any more interiors or exterior architectural work at all. But what is quite interesting is at the time when this was finished, Bassett-Loke asked him if he could actually do a rough design of what a new house would look like altogether. And apparently Mackintosh sketched on the back of an envelope a new house, gave it to Bassett-Loke, and Bassett-Loke wrote in his diary, "Too fantastic, too expensive." So it just wasn't going to happen, which is a great shame.
In fact, Bassett-Loke did go on to build another strikingly modern house in Northampton, but this one wasn't designed by Rennie Mackintosh, which means that number 78 Domegate is almost certainly his last statement as a designer. And what a statement it was. After saying goodbye to number 78, I'm heading for the 50s. The 1950s, that is. This was a heady time for the great British biker. Thousands of would-be brandos kick-started their dream machines and hit the tarmac in pursuit of adventure. And when they got tired of doing that, they stopped for a cuppa and a sandwich.
But there was one transport cafe that the rockers particularly loved. A mecca for all petrol heads, an icon to the biking fraternity, the Ace Cafe on the North Circular.
That's what it looked like then, and here it is today. A perfectly preserved piece of Americana, a taste of Route 66 just off the A406. It's had a few ups and downs over the years, but today the Ace is still serving up a reminder of the 50s to road-weary wild ones. I'm looking forward to a cup of something warming, but that'll have to wait, because part of the fun of places like this is taking a stroll through the parking lot to see who's in town. This is Michael, who first pulled up at the Ace in the early days.
When I first come to the Ace Cafe, it was 1954. I had an Aerial. That was the first bike I ever possessed.
Did you feel you were part of a tribe when you came down here?
I met people who were exactly the same as me. They were like a clan.
It was a feeling of freedom, presumably.
Absolutely, I totally agree. We used to go to Southend and, you know, all sorts of runs.
So did you get involved in any of the carry-on with the mods at the seaside?
Unfortunately, yeah, I did, but I didn't harm anybody.
Well, that's good to know. Michael's never lost his passion for bikes, but by the late 60s, many of his contemporaries were starting to feel their age. As they traded in their Nortons for something with 4 wheels and a heater, the allure of the Ace began to wear off, and it was finally forced to close. For a few years, this one-time bastion of teenage rebellion sold out completely and became a bookie's office. The odds of it ever reopening as a cafe looked slim. But then, a white knight rode onto the horizon with a quiff in his hair and a dream in his heart to bring back some rock and roll to the North Circular.
It came ultimately as a consequence of her interest in our heritage and our history. The challenge for me was not that it should be open, it was actually how on earth to do it. So I hadn't a clue. It took some while to fathom all that out, but the upshot is it's now here and open and serving egg on toast again.
The Ace finally put the kettle back on in 2001, serving up a modern take on a 50s classic.
So Mark, it looks beautifully restored to me, but how would this have differed in the old days?
In terms of the structure itself, the column or pier we're under was originally a wall. This side of that wall was a restaurant. Youths, as they were referred to, were never allowed in that restaurant. They were only allowed in this part, which was the cafe. The counter is in exactly the same place, the kitchen's in exactly the same place.
Well, I reckon I need some of those authentic Ace Cafe sausages and mash, I reckon.
Bangers and mash, and I think 2 teas, please.
Bangers and mash and a cup of tea, that, my friends, is rock and roll.
So Mark, here we are, at the very heart of the both modern and old Ace Cafe, the jukebox.
We could have had an original one in here, but I'm told that they always used to break down, and if it's 40 years old, it'll break down even more. But it's got the right stuff on there. including rock and roll, and including, I think it's called ska and soul.
What the hell nonsense. But of course, the history of the jukebox was the only place people could come and hear those early rock and roll records.
Apparently, you could only hear rock and roll either on a jukebox in places like this, a cafe, or at fairgrounds. As this was, I understand, quite unique in that it was open 24 hours, London. Of course, kids would come and listen to their new music. What more could a 17-year-old want, except his bike, of course.
And do you know anything of these record races I've heard tell?
The challenge, apparently, was to see who could put a record on the jukebox and then leave here up to junctions that now don't exist, up at Neasden and behind us to the west at Hanger Lane, and get back here. That, of course, produces carnage.
Before the record ended, yeah.
I'm pleased to say that's one tradition that died out a long time ago. But even for an old modernist like me, it's great to see this little piece of biker heaven still motoring on after all these years.
Southend or bust!
Aye, never mind the seaside. Coming up next, the hidden water world in London's West End.
Well, here I am, strolling through London's wild West End at 7:30 on a winter's morning. What on earth is he doing, I hear you say? And no, I haven't just stepped out of one of my gentlemen's clubs. I'm looking for a swimming pool, and not a cosy indoor one neither. A nice manly outdoor pool. And it's right here, in the middle of this building, overlooked by flats and offices.
The hustle and bustle of Holborn might seem an unlikely place to find an outdoor pool. But this part of London has a watery past, which goes way back to at least the 1720s, when there was a Turkish bath on the site. In the 1930s, when Lidos were all the rage, there was an ambitious plan to build a German-style Schwimmstad on the site. But they pulled the plug on that scheme when the war started. And when the fighting was over, they opened this pool instead, the Oasis, the West End's very own secret seaside resort.
In Holborn's Endell Street, it's called, appropriately enough, the Oasis. It's an unbelievable retreat from office desks and shop floors that makes it the favourite haven of typists and tycoons alike, resting actresses, bearded bohemians, and not-so-busy housewives and pavement-weary shoppers.
The Oasis is still going strong today, and even on a nippy autumn morning there are still plenty of swimmers willing to brave the elements for an early morning dip, even though there's also an indoor pool next door for the lily-livered. Actually, it's not as Spartan as you might think, because the water's heated, which is what made it possible to bring in all-year swimming back in the 80s.
Good morning, Peter.
How are you doing?
Very good, mate. So what a beautiful sight.
You know, someone actually said to me once, she said, this is the best kept secret in London, you know. And we said, well, we wanted to keep it that way because we couldn't actually cope here with the, you know, thousands of people, really, that would actually come in here. Because it is a small place and it is tucked away. It is a sun trap. And there is a limit to how many people you can get there without creating a queue that will probably lead you up to Drury Lane, you know, a couple of hundred metres away.
And presumably some fine sights here on the sun deck during the summertime.
You know, I remember one particular occasion there, some woman came down there, an older woman, and she banged on the manager's door and she said, it's outrageous, she said. There's women swimming, sunbathing upstairs with their breast exposed, you see. Well, anyway, I had to come up here and, you know, go up to these ladies and tell them that the bylaws didn't allow, you know, sunbathing topless, you know.
Damn those bylaws.
But it's not like you're sunbathing in private. Not only are there offices and flats overlooking every corner of this little strip of paradise, there's also some sheltered accommodation right on the doorstep of the pool. I'm not sure how I'd feel about taking the plunge in front of an audience like that, but it doesn't seem to faze the regulars.
My last question, obviously, is has anyone jumped off the roof of them flats into the pool?
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, they certainly did. Before we put the pool covers on, you know, obviously the pool was covered, it was exposed at night time, and we had a couple of the elderly residents who used to come down, and one there was, she nearly had a heart attack up there. She said, I heard this noise outside, you know, and I've gone out there, and there's this half a dozen skinheads, and they'd all suddenly launched themselves off of the top floor into the pool, you know, and they was all splashing around. I mean, that was one thing, but the fact that they was naked at about, 3 o'clock in the morning, I think that must probably added to it as well.
Made her day. Made her
It wasn't
day.
you, was it?
Traditionally, London pools also had public bars and wash houses on the premises as well, and the Oasis was no exception. There's been a public laundry here for the past 150 years. Today, it's run by Charlie.
So, Charlie, what was the laundry like when you first came here?
Very popular. A lot of people from the blocks all used to come and do their washing right through. From 8 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the night.
But how many customers you still got now?
Now we only got about 11 people. Because it changed, the building changed.
And how about for you? Do you miss the times when it was more hustling and bustling in the laundry?
Well, it was a bit more fun. See people in there, you'd have a chat, talk and everything like that. People go out and bring teas, sit down, talk, and do the laundry.
93-year-old May still brings her washing here today, just as her mother did before her.
And then eventually you would have started coming here as a young woman to do your own
Yes,
laundry?
yes. I was 13, I think, when I started doing my own washing, because my mum used to show me how to do it, and then I used to say, can I go and book a ticket then? She said, yes, let them know that you can do it all.
And also you swam here too?
Yes, only in Garders, swimming Garders. Apart from me and my own family, but all around, like my relations and that, they all used to swim in here, the mans, you know.
So it's been a multi-purpose place for you. You did your laundry, you had a bath, and then you went swimming?
Oh, yes, yes.
Many of London's outdoor pools have closed in recent years, but I'm pleased to report that things are going swimmingly for the Oasis, a little slice of the seaside tucked away in the heart of the concrete jungle.
No one's quite sure why it's called the Oasis, but it certainly is a little sanctuary at the heart of the city hustle. And it's only when you step back outside the portals you remember you're back in the harsh realities of city life. But I tell you what, I feel like I've been on a little mini break.
I've visited my fair share of eccentric buildings in these programmes, but my next destination beats the lot. And it stands in the most unlikely of settings.
A modern housing development is not the sort of place you'd expect to find a very peculiar architectural survivor. But this Northampton housing estate has one, and if you look very, very closely, you might just be able to spot it.
This place is so tall it must be a hazard to passing aircraft. But what on earth is it? What on earth is it doing here? Let's take a moment to ponder the possibilities.
It can't be a lighthouse, because it's 70 miles to the sea from here, and I doubt very much it's a disused factory chimney, because it appears to have windows.
Come on, Suggs, you're not going to be beaten by a little thing like this. Let's see if there are any other clues knocking around. Got it?
Perhaps it was Northampton's entry in the most striking roundabout in Britain competition. You know, they said, forget landscaping, forget flower beds, they're all doing that. Let's put a whopping great tower in the middle of it. That'll put us on the map.
Wrong again. This place has got me stumped. I need a local to put me out of my misery. Hang on a minute. This chap looks like he might know.
Hello there, Dave.
Suggs?
Lovely place you got yourself here.
You reckon?
But what the hell is it?
Well, it's a lift testing tower.
I say.
It's fairly unique.
Would it be possible to go in and have a look?
Absolutely, yes. You fit?
Not that fit.
Unfortunately, he wasn't joking, and Dave knows more about this place than most people. He worked as an engineer here until the tower closed a few years back.
Well, there's not a lot to see down here. Like I say, it's mostly derelict, and we've been out quite a long time now. Best view is from the top.
From the top?
Yep, up these stairs.
How many floors is that?
It's 18 floors and about 600 stairs.
Don't worry, I'll get the lift. What's this? 1, 8.
No, I'm afraid we're walking.
Lovely picture of Her Majesty here, look, and the tower looking in better days, yeah.
In better days.
So we're going up here, is that right?
Yeah, we'll go up there and we'll go to the top.
Come on then, let's
go.
This amazing edifice is 127 metres tall. It was constructed in 1982 using a revolutionary new technique for building with concrete. The whole thing went up in just 3 weeks. which is just about as long as it's going to take me to get to the top at this rate. Hang on though, maybe we're going faster than I thought.
Oh, great. Well done, mate. You got me up there. Thanks.
Yeah, all the way to level 4.
4?
Yep.
We've been up about 1 million stairs there, David.
No.
That means there's still another load of floors to go.
There's a load to go, yeah.
So this is obviously the room service department. Poached egg on floor 17. Now, look. Bzz, bzz.
Yeah, this room is where we used to do quite a lot of life testing. And we used to test relays, contactors, basically anything, because it all had to do millions of operations.
Well, it's testing my legs, I can tell you that much. Now, presumably this lift works then?
No, afraid not. We're still walking. A few more yet.
Come on, Tenzing.
Before the tower closed, there were 3 experimental shafts here. They were used to test all the mechanical bits and bobs that help a lift to do its job properly, carrying you and me safely to the top floor. Talking of which...
So we made it, Dave.
We did. Level 18.
Fantastic, look at that.
What do you think of the view?
It's a spectacular view. You can even see the rugby ground where Northampton fans gather to watch their beloved team, although you'd probably need binoculars to follow the game from up here.
It's a great view, isn't it? The only problem is you can see the players running around, but you can't see the ball.
In fact, wherever you look, it's an impressive view, although not many people get to see it these days, now the tower is no longer in use.
If they're not testing lifts here anymore, where are they testing lifts?
Well, we have a number of facilities around the world. There's a nice big tower in Japan, it's about 160 metres tall. There's a big facility in the States, and there's another one in France, about an hour south of Paris.
Well, I'm very glad to say that the programme doesn't stretch that far. This is quite high enough for me.
Today, the lift tower is listed by English Heritage in recognition of its architectural importance, but no one's quite decided what to do with it next. Some people talk of converting it into luxury apartments. Others would like to make it a playground for abseiling enthusiasts. That's one way of getting back down to earth in a hurry, but on this occasion, I think I'll stick to the stairs. Next time on Suggsy Survivors, I'll be riding Europe's oldest roller coaster, discovering the secrets of this high-rise folly, and having a ding-dong at an East End bell foundry.